Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Spill the Beans. Today I'm sitting down with my buddy Jerry Green. He's in town filming for Legacy Wealth Academy, his masterclass on sales psychology. He's an absolute master at it and actually just bought a good friend of ours in the real estate industry who has the highest rated sales training. He actually just bought his business. So I'm going to dive into all that stuff, talk about sales psychology. I think this is going to be a huge skill set for anybody in the real estate industry on negotiating direct to seller on deals in both the residential and the commercial space. This is going to be one of those game changer skill sets that you can implement over the course of the next 24 months. And if you dial this in, I think you're going to be head and shoulders above everybody else over the next 24 months. So let's go sit down with Jerry. Mr. Jerry Green. How you doing,
up,
man?
brother?
That sounded good too, dude. So, first of all, I'm super excited that you're here in Charleston. It's we've known each other for a long time, 2015 range, right?
Yeah, a long time
before
already.
any of this was in existence. You've gone through a lot of different transitions and growths in your business. I've
yes.
gone through a lot of mine, and I want to unpack a lot of it. You know, I think there's a lot of value that we can share of what that journey looks like to a lot of people who watch Spill the Beans. So why don't you share a little bit about your background, your story, how you got started as an entrepreneur, how you got started as an investor, so that way people understand your backstory.
Sure. So one of the big things that I guess take it back in time, all started back in really like early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we launched into the real estate business full time in 94. But before that, I was working with my father in an electrical contracting business. And I had, what kind of forced me really into the real estate space was I had a general contractor fold up his doors and owed us a little over 60 grand. You know, and take it back in the 90s, small little business, that was a big hit.
That's a lot of money.
Yep, wasn't able to recover from it. We ended up going bankrupt on that, tried to figure out what I was going to do next. So I saw a advertisement in a local TV station.
Yeah.
You know, didn't have all the cell phones and stuff, ads and stuff back then. So we just basically, I saw an ad for a guy back in the business, Charles Gibbons. And he was kind of, most people haven't heard of him.
Yeah.
And so, but he was big on the real estate side, wealth training. So I went to an event he did in Cincinnati and said, man, I'm going to make this happen. And had no idea how I was going to make it happen.
Yep.
But I went to that event, and the interesting thing is after that event, I ended up hiring a gentleman from that event to become a mentor for me. The only problem is I didn't have any money to do that, so I borrowed my mom and dad's credit cards
Yep.
and paid him 10 grand, and that started the whole journey. Only thing is I had to figure out how to generate money now, Tim, and you know how that goes, bro.
Yep.
And so I started focusing on strategies to do that, and really it came down to just wholesaling. Started going out there, pounding. This was over in Springfield, Ohio. And I just went out hammering the neighborhoods. Literally back then, you know, it was all the grind.
Knocking on doors?
Oh, dude, it was a grind mode. Because we didn't have anything to list. I mean, there was nothing, nothing that was like that. I mean, only list you would create the one that you went out and created yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So we would go out and knock on the doors, taking boards off windows, whatever, and get in. And
I love it.
I started wholesaling those, and then I started getting the fix and flip model, dude.
People just don't know how good they have it, right?
Oh, dude, no.
They have access to all this stuff. Back in the good old days, like, dude, we didn't have CRMs, right? Like when I mean, maybe
didn't know what it was.
They did, yeah. I didn't know what it was, and even if I did know what it was, I didn't use it because I just had a yellow legal pad with a pen and a telephone, just trying to like knock on doors, go into the city or the county website and trying to like figure out who owns that property. And
we had to go, literally, we would do driving for dollars. I would either be myself or my wife or somebody else, a friend of mine. We would go down to the county courthouse, pull up the microfiche, and then just to pull up 50 records, it would take all day.
wow.
All day long.
Wow. So you're really looking for the lowest hanging fruit, right? Like the most distressed properties, putting letters, knocking on the neighbor's door, trying to figure out. And people they're not willing to do that stuff nowadays, you know?
No.
Like they're looking for the easy route. But that will differentiate you. Yeah, it's a little bit antiquated, but guess what?
It works.
It works in a big, big way, and it sets you apart from everybody else and the stack of yellow letters that they get from every other investor in town. So, no, I think that's a great learning lesson. So, You get into wholesaling, and you start doing the fix and flip stuff.
Started doing fix and flip, and then I think you know too, bro, is what I went through personally with my first wife. We really rocked out the business, and we were over in Springfield, and we were having a new baby, and that's she went into premature labor and found out that the day my boy was born that she had cancer.
Yeah.
And massive tumor in her kidneys, and we went through a major battle on that.
And how old was she?
She was 33 when that happened, and then over the next 10 months we battled through it. We actually went from bankruptcy to the point of building a brand new dream home, moved in the home, got pregnant, and then she got sick. And so I moved out of our brand new home to live in basically I lived in the Ronald McDonald House in Columbus, Ohio, because she was treated in Children's Hospital because it was childhood cancer, even though she was an adult. So I lived in Ronald McDonald House for 4 months.
Had that been with her since she was a child?
Well, they don't know.
It just never metastasized or something?
They're not sure on that. It's called Wilms tumor, very rare for an adult to have. And but yeah, it came in, and then she had major surgery. She lost both kidneys in major surgery, and then after that was complication after complication. She was in the hospital for 4 months straight, and we finally got home after they got out of all that craziness for 4 months. But she was bedridden, and about a month after we were home, she had another scan done. They found the cancer was everywhere, and then they told me that it's time to call in hospice. So from the time she got that till the time she passed away was 10 months. And of course, here I was with a brand new newborn baby and trying to figure out what to do. And she worked with me in the business. We worked at home. We had a home office. We've been dating since high school. And so it took me about 2 years, Tim, to even get functioning again and be able to get my life back.
How has that influenced how you've built businesses moving forward?
Well, I can tell you this, dude. It dramatically changed the way I looked at things in regards to, it used to be everything was about me, 100%. And I know you know how that goes too.
For sure.
Where the whole team comes on board, but you have a team, but it's all dependent on you. So, you're doing all the sales. You're really driving the marketing. You're deciding on all the renovations, the layouts, and all this stuff here. So I looked at it, really, everybody was just kind of riding the Jerry wave. And I had to stop that insanity. And that's, ever since then, I had to really start thinking things over again and pretty well tore everything apart and rebuilt it again. And just got to the point where, I build it out now. And that's one of the things I teach people now is how to systemize and put the operations in place to remove themselves from the day-to-day. But it was a night and day, man. It was like...
that's the stuff that nobody... It's like, dude, why do you build a big business? Well, I want to get rich. I want to buy the cars. I want to buy the watches, and I want to buy the houses, and I want to go on the vacations, and I want to do all these things. And what you don't plan for, and one of the blessings of being able to have a business built the right way, is like when something like that happens, right? And you need to step away and be able to spend time with a loved one or support them and not have to worry about the money. Like, that's worth way more than all the cars and all the watches and all the vacations and all the houses. Being able to spend that time with your loved ones when time is constrained the most, and people don't talk about that enough. And I think it's a really important. Whenever we talk and comes up and I think about that, it really recenters me.
Well, I can tell you, man, I always look back and it's like a different life, that I had back then, and then it was all gone just like that. And so that is so true what you just said there on things, because it's easy to get caught up in all the flash, all the sizzle, and all that. But all that can be gone. And the way that I look at it is someday somebody will be living in my house. Someday someone else will be driving one of my cars. You know what I mean? So you just got to have that attitude.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I agree. So, all right. So, as you're systematizing your business, going through a really difficult time in your life, takes you about 2 years to rebound. You rebuild the business in a way that doesn't necessarily need you there, right? And what did that do for your business? Were you sustaining the income that you were already making? Did you make more money?
well, it was interesting because, everybody was like, what are you hiring this person for? What do you know how that goes, Tim. All these people start saying stuff like, why don't you just do it yourself?
Yeah.
It's a lot
Yeah.
easier, don't
Yeah.
be messing with all that. So I continued to grow. Now I had to go through some different people, okay, as you know, on that. But when I found the right person, which like is Ashley now that runs the things for me,
Rockstar.
yeah, it's like, it was amazing, Tim, because literally within the first 24 months, we increased revenues by 50%. And I wasn't involved in all that day to day. And I'm still some at that time, but nothing like I was before. And I noticed that as I keep pulling myself back more and more, that the company would just keep moving forward. Because ultimately, I was a bottleneck.
It's scary,
I
man.
was the bottleneck, right?
It is, and
And,
we always are.
and it was crazy on that side of things because, I was in a position where I felt like I had to be in control of everything. Every single thing. And if I didn't make that decision, it was going to be the wrong one. And it was completely wrong.
It was
It was completely wrong.
we all start out as, you know, solopreneurs. We all start out of needing to be in control of everything because if something falls through the cracks, the business is gone, right? And then when you start hiring people on, you're so paranoid that something's going to get missed or something's going to fall through the cracks that like you don't allow your team to make decisions. And when you don't allow them to make decisions, then they come to you to make all the decisions for them. And you're like, what the hell am I building this team for?
Exactly. See, that was the whole thing. Just like when I built out the sales, started building out my sales team. It was like originally I said, okay, great, I'm going to have salespeople. But every time they wanted to do a deal, they had to run it by me. So what was their purpose?
Yeah.
I had to analyze them. And then next thing you know, I had this big stack of
And then they're
deal
waiting on
sheets.
you to do their job.
And I'm like, it's just crazy. So it's just everything's changed on that.
So what are some of the things that we can talk about, like early on? How do you start automating? How do you start putting processes in place? How do you start empowering your team to make those decisions and problem solve on their own without having you to sign off on everything?
Yeah.
Like, what are a couple of key takeaways or things that people can implement right now in their business and to make a difference?
Well, I think the first thing they have to do before they even implement anything is they have to understand that this is a real business. That's the big thing, Tim. Especially if you're in the real estate side,
That's
and
a great point.
there was a light bulb moment for me. Was basically I literally drew a line on a piece of paper. One side I wrote real estate, the other side I wrote business, and I said my problem is right here. I've been caught up in the real estate side, and what I was a professional deal chaser. I never thought about it as a business. So when I started thinking about it as a business, I started thinking about it like if I was in the business of cell phones, and that is, how can I run this business and crank through as much product as possible? And it changed everything. So that's the first thing I think that we got to look at.
You're absolutely right, because I think a lot of people get caught up in, hey, what are the skill sets that I need to learn? I need
100%.
to talk to sellers. I need to learn how to raise private money. I need to whatever those skills are, right? It's like, as a contractor, I need to learn how to swing a hammer. I need how to use a wrench and use this and use all the tools and the technical side of things. But the technical side of things can only get you to making a good income as a job, right? Versus actually, if you understand the business side of things and you understand the pillars of business, right? Marketing and sales and accounting and finance and operations and human resources, and if you understand those dynamics, those transcend other industries. It transcends business. It's why the big business moguls can have their hands in so many different cookie jars because they don't understand business. And it doesn't matter the widget you're selling. It doesn't matter the service you're offering. It's understanding the business principles and the marketing principles and how to build out a team and systems and process and procedures and all those things. Now, Real estate's just a great vehicle to be in. You know,
Exactly.
it's there, but you could be in any vehicle if you understand the business side of things, and that was the pivot for you.
Yep, that was a big pivot for me.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized that, the next thing I really need to look at was the people component. And the big thing on the people component was stop hiring people just based upon skills. And that was my big problem.
Great point.
Because I would just bring people on, oh, yeah, you can do that? Come on board. No idea about...
Proficient in Microsoft Word. Oh,
yeah,
great.
yeah,
Well, come
yeah,
on. Hey,
yes.
well, you can...
There was nothing, bro, about anything when it comes to our culture. There was nothing about core values. Of course, I didn't even know what really what core values were at that time. But then we started
Some
applying
shit
all
Nike
that.
puts on the wall in order to try to
See, I
get
thought it was
people
all
excited.
a bunch of hype.
Yeah.
But now everything is ran by that.
Oh, once you understand that is, like your core values are your 10 commandments of how you make decisions in your business, and especially difficult decisions,
100%.
right? Hey, the number one salesperson just smacks somebody on the ass. Guess what? They don't get extra rope because they're the number one salesperson.
Right.
They got to go.
Yep.
That's not acceptable behavior, And so once you have those core values in place, you can make decisions, and it helps you make decisions even if they're difficult decisions, because it's easy to go and say, hey, this is our values, this is what we live by, this is how we operate, you're not abiding by those, we got to let you go.
Yep, 100%.
And I see that over and over and over again, and that's one of the things I never had in writing, and I never had shared with the team. And we actually had an exercise. Scott Hannes came in and sat down with the team, and we had everybody jump in and say, what are our core values? What do we believe in? This is when my team was, 4 or 5 people. And what do we believe in? And I kind of sat back as the CEO. I didn't really talk much. I kind of would steer things once somebody said it, but I kind of let them come up with the ideas, and then, but they said the things that I would want on there anyways. Hey, we take an ownership mentality over things. We think for ourselves. We're resourceful. We problem solve. We critically think. We we have fun. We have a good time. We laugh about things even when things are stressful. And they came up with all these, and then all of a sudden it was magical because they weren't Tim's values. They were the team's values. And everybody had the buy-in from that because they were the team values. And if somebody wasn't living by those, then guess what? They would either tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, Tim, that person's not living by it. Or they'd be like, hey, man, I'm out of line. You're right. I'm not following that. Let's get back inside the lines.
Well, they correct themselves. And also they know, too, if they're not, if they're not living by those and not working by those, then ultimately they will remove themselves.
It'll make them feel so uncomfortable if they don't fall inside.
100%. Yeah.
If it's somebody who's a cheater or doesn't take ownership mentality, and everybody else is taking ownership mentality and picking up litter, and then they're asked to do the same thing, and they feel weird. It's all of a sudden they're just going to say, hey, this isn't my environment, and they'll remove themselves, which removes a lot of the emotions out of it, because as emotional beings, man, I want it for a lot of people on my team more than I feel like they want it for themselves. And so it's very difficult for me to part ways with joint venture partners or people who work with me in any capacity. And so having the metrics in place and having core values in place allows, kind of like an arm's length and not be emotional. It's like, hey, this is what we live by. This is what we believe in. And you're either, not doing your job, or you're not hitting your goals, or you're not hitting these metrics, or you're not living by the code that we all agreed on, And
100%,
so
bro.
Again, it removes the drama from it. So
one other thing I want to share too, another item is that something that I really started applying here was, depending where some of you might be in a position where, you could be starting up your business, or you could be way down the road and growing a team. But I looked at really 4 phases in the business side of things here. And then that is that first phase where a lot of people are starting up, the growth phase, the launch phase. So they're starting up, like we do, and we get things rolling, and we're doing like you said, everything ourselves pretty well. And then we go into that growth phase. So now we're starting to make some hires. We're starting to put some operational processes in. Then what happens is typically most people go from that second phase, which is the growth phase, they go to the fourth phase. And that fourth phase is they try to go to scale, but they go way too early. And what happens, you think about this, because this happened to me too, everything comes back in your lap. And next thing you know, you're trying to you've got this big mess. I mean, you know how it was on the turnkey side, you know, and I went through that too, man. And it's like all this stuff comes back. Well, we skip over the third phase, and that's what we call the constraint phase. And that's understanding the constraints you have to put within your business. So that's another big thing I want to share with people is understanding the
Talk
constraints.
about that. Yeah, let's dive into those.
So what I look at on the
And real quick, do you have like quantifiable metrics for about how much revenue is a business doing when they're in the launch phase?
Yeah,
From 0 to 500,000 or $1 million maybe.
yeah, you're typically under the mill.
Yeah.
On
And
that
then
side of
then
things.
in growth phase you're at mil to 5, mil to
Yeah,
10.
usually definitely less than 5.
Yep.
Yeah, usually somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from about $1 million to about $3 million, and then.
And I bet it would depend on what kind of business it
It
is
is.
too, and how much overhead you have, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And what your margins are.
So, but what I find is when you get to the point where you have to start looking at these constraints. So one of the things we do is we work with a lot of students like this that come into our, in our business, do, one of our workshops, and they come in, they sit there for a couple of days, and they notice that how we've put basically pretty well all these, if you look at it, constraints or like resistors in place there where this stops here, or this stops here, and it could be something I'm doing, it could be something a team member's doing, for instance, deals that you're doing, okay? As you know, man, there's no way you can do everything. You can't, you're not going to be able to go out and do mobile homes, multifamily, commercial buildings, fix and flip, wholesaling. Doing all that is just craziness.
Yep.
So what we do is we started putting constraints on that. And what I look at is I started looking at this, Tim, more like a production process and an assembly line. So basically I said, okay, here's one assembly line. This might be for wholesale. This other assembly line might be for buy and hold.
I like that.
These are my assembly lines, and these are my constraints. And what I do is I set it up where I like fix and flip. You decide how many you're going to do over the next year. And you lay that out ahead of time. It's just like manufacturers. They go in and they say, over the next year, we're going to produce this much product. This is what our goals are for this. They plan the assembly line based upon that. They put the manpower, the supplies, and all that. So we've done the same thing when it comes to our business. And guess what? When I've done that, changed the results. Because what I was doing, instead of, you think about it, here's where most investors operate. The deal comes into their pipeline. As soon as it comes in their pipeline, then they're going to this thing of decision. Man, should I buy and hold this? Should I wholesale this? Should I fix and flip this? Right? What does that take? That takes brain power.
Yep.
It takes decision. Most investors, what they suffer from is decision fatigue.
Yep.
So they get this in, and what happens? It delays the whole production process. So I always say, imagine you had an assembly line of vehicles running down it. And every time it got to a certain spot, they had to run to you as a manager or owner of the company and ask you what color to paint it. How much production would you get done?
They're done.
Yeah. So it's the same thing in our business. So what I did was we put the constraints on and said, this is the product that we're going to look at producing over the next 12 months through this assembly line, but it was on property. And we started playing it that way, and it was like, holy cow. And it allowed me to step out of it. It allowed me to empower somebody else to do it. And then the same way that came down like margins on a deal. I'm not going to do anything that doesn't produce this type of margin. So I step away from that. Now, what happens is if the team already knows this, they don't need to come to me anymore. Decisions made. You just put constraints, and start putting constraints on yourself. Like, I'm not going to be involved in every single meeting, or I'm going to be on the meetings, but I'm not going to say anything, and then I'll wean myself off. So yeah, it's a powerful tool, man.
I mean, constraints. Every time I go through massive growth, it's because a constraint was either put on me, or I created it for myself.
100%.
Like that's what really pushes through. Because otherwise you're not uncomfortable enough unless you're facing some sort of constraint. Hey, closing's on Monday. I need to go and raise a couple $1,000,000 over the weekend, right? Because if I don't, the lender's going to start asking, how come you don't have the cash? The contractor's going to go jump onto another job. The mortgage broker's going to get pissed. The title company's going to get pissed. The real estate broker's going to get pissed. Like, your reputation's riding out. Like, I have a constraint on me to go out and raise money because that's my part of the job. I got to go and get this done. And it's like having a paper due in college or in high school, and you got a due date on it. And all of a sudden, when do you do it? You cram the night before, right? Yeah. You knock it all out the night before. But if that constraint wasn't in place, it wouldn't have gotten done at all, 100%. And if the constraint was 2 weeks prior or a month prior, it would have gotten done at that time. And that's why constraints are so strong. The key, I think, with constraints is not having them happen to you, but you creating them for yourself.
100%, man.
It's two very different positions to be in, you know?
And I think that's a big thing, and I don't really care where you're at in your business. Some of our viewers here, if they're just starting up and they're just really getting going on this, just start with little things. And then that's how you start removing yourself from this. And otherwise, you never get off the hamster wheel.
I used dollar amounts. Mm-hmm. So that was an easy way for me to say, hey, team, you make all decisions up to $100, $500, $1,000. Right? And then you're authorized in order to make a decision up to $500. Okay? If it's over $500 up to $5,000, then you need somebody else on the team, not me, not Tim, but somebody else on the team needs to also look at it, put another set of eyeballs on it, and collectively you guys can make the decision on what the best route is to take from $500 up to $5,000. If it's over $5,000, bring it to me, right. Or bring it to the COO. It's over 50,000, 100,000, then I start getting involved in those bigger ones. But early on, it was like, dude, $100, I don't care what happens, And that was like the first limitation or the first constraint that I made was, don't bring me anything that's a $100 decision or less. You guys make it. And then that has gradually increased as everybody showed competency and ability to make those decisions in a good manner. And you can continuously increase those dollar amounts. But yeah, man, I think it's a powerful, powerful concept. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about buying businesses. So you just bought John Martinez's business, the Sales Academy.
Yep,
right?
REI Sales Academy.
REI Sales Academy, which give everybody a quick background on
so
what that is.
So the Sales Academy was created by John Martinez. He's the founder of the Sales Academy. He created it, it's been about 8 years ago now. And John built this based upon his, deep study in the psychology of sales and how people make decisions in regards to this human beings when it comes to buying something, selling something. And so John took that thinking and applied it to the real estate side of things and developed really what we consider today the gold standard. And pretty well anybody else that's done any type of sales training is pretty well spun off of this. So he set this up, built this up, and it's really become the, like I say, the gold standard when it comes to real estate sales training in the country. And a little over a year ago, I guess not quite a year ago, it's not too far from it though.
Yeah, not far from it.
He originally reached out to me last year and said, hey, Jerry, I'm looking at doing something different on things. I wanted to approach you. You're one of the ones I really wanted to talk to about this because I was already teaching that anyways, Tim. I was teaching my own version of acquisitions, So I thought about it. I thought, it sounds like a good fit. So we started a journey. It took us about 8 months to get it done, and we closed it back in April. So it's been basically 4 months now that I bought the company.
And so you're, first of all, John Martinez, great guy, absolutely brilliant business mind. Was just focused on some other stuff. Was looking to take life, business in a different direction. Was looking to exit out of this. What I love is he didn't just put it out on the market and have some broker take it.
Exactly.
He found people who had similar core values to his and personally reached out to them.
Yep.
It's not like the blanket, kind of like what we were talking about before, blanket marketing to anybody and seeing what sticks against the wall. No, he was very targeted. Found a few people that he would trust with taking over his company who had similar core values, who had similar competency and knew would take care of his students and his clientele. and move it over to them. So I love that was the case and how he kind of approached you. Most of the businesses you've grown from the ground up, though, right?
100%.
You've never bought a business. You've always taken it from scratch, turned an idea into something that generated revenue.
This is the first time on this.
This is the first time that you've actually bought a business. And let's talk about some of the differences. I think it's really fascinating. Everybody wants to go build their own business, but it takes time. It takes runway.
man.
It takes resources. There's a lot that goes into it. So what was it like looking at his business when he approached you, and like what were some of the first questions that you had for him about that?
I mean, right out of the gate, it was like, well, obviously we look at the financial side of things, and those were very strong. But it was what was really cool about it is it was a whole different way of looking at things, Tim, on this, because if you think about it, it's a lot like buying a cash flowing building. You're coming in, you're buying a cash flow. Okay, that's what you're buying. You're buying a cash flow source.
But here's the
that's
thing:
very proven.
when I have a building, I still have the tangible building. When you got a business, right, it's a little bit different. It's all reliant upon operations, right? Even if operations totally shit the bed on the buildings, I still have a tangible asset that I can sell. So it's a little bit different, and I would think much more sensitive to variables that could change when looking at a business that doesn't really, I mean, it has assets, but the assets are the email list for the most part.
Well,
and there were some IP, right? And
well, that was the whole thing, man. It was so much of a business like this was mainly about the intellectual property. Okay, it was about the list. It was the marketing machine that he had created that was provable and regarding its results. It was about the system that he had built out in regards to everything from the way the leads flow in to the way that they're set up for an appointment, how the sales calls are done, and regarding the little script that goes with that, the way they're closed, the way that they're followed up with afterwards, the way they're led into the academy, all these things. And
so just like there is a tangible asset on the real estate side where you can predictably say, well, we have this property right here, and there's 60 units that each rent for $1,000 a month, and here's predictably what the expenses are that are associated with that, so you can predict what the net operating income is, whether it's occupied right now or not occupied right now. It's a very predictable cash flow that you can put together on that. You can do the same thing over here.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Like you can take a look at it and say, hey, out of 800 variations of this different marketing message, 30 of them worked really, really well. Here's the conversion rate, because those statistics are very, very direct and indicating of how many people are actually going to go through the entire sales funnel with the landing page and the conversion page, and he knows exactly what the metrics are across the board. So now you could say, hey, if I spend $100,000 or $10,000 or $10,000 a month on marketing, it's going to convert this much to sales because it's been around the block enough times.
Exactly. And it was totally different than, I guess what the best way, it's really a strange feeling when you're acquiring the business that's already functional and has been out there making money for years compared to starting up something new. Because obviously we're not going through that launch time. We're not building all that ramp up time and stuff like that. It's already there. So, and I think I was sharing this with you a little bit earlier. What was so weird is we bought it, when the day we closed, within a matter of days, we already had revenue coming in.
It's amazing.
Compared to when you're ramping up a company, it's a total different ballgame.
Yeah, you're expending money for months, if not years of your life. It's like building an apartment building versus buying an apartment building. Right? You build it, you're going to have carrying costs, you're going to have overhead, there's a lot of upside risk, there's a lot of growing pains associated with that. Now, there's upside equity, right? Maybe your cost basis is lower over here, but the reality is, if you buy an existing building that's already cash flowing, the risk is almost gone, and even though there is debt on it, no worries, because you have predictable revenue coming in. Everybody wants cash flow. Well, guess what? The quickest way to get into cash flow is to buy into cash flow,
100%.
not to grow it from organically from nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you can do that, if you have the means to be able to do that, and the thing is, a lot of people think that you have to have a lot of your own capital to do that, and that's not true at all. Okay, there's some tremendous programs out there. For one, the SBA. Okay, they have some amazing programs, and we were able to put a deal together with the SBA on this deal.
Really?
Yeah, and we're able to do 10% down. 10% down
Really?
to it. Yeah, and 10% down, 10-year loan, and just it's crazy on that what's available out there. But you got to get with the right people to
So he
understand
was
these
able to get
programs.
all of his money out
all
on
of
the
his
sale.
money.
He didn't have to carry anything
Didn't
back.
have to carry anything back.
Because that's one of those things where a lot of people are trying to sell their business always think, hey, I got to sell it to carry back. Or
Yeah.
whatever. That's good from a buyer perspective because a lot of times that is a common notion across a lot of business owners who don't have tangible assets. But they're like, I got to carry this back, carry that back. But if they do have assets and there's things that they can lend upon, there's some sort of collateral, which is these email lists and the intellectual property and all those different courses and assets and digital assets and stuff that he had, then you can actually go and get a bank loan.
Yeah.
Now, what would they look at? Are they looking at 2 years of tax returns? Are they looking at profit and loss statements? Do they want 10 years? They want 5 years?
They're typically wanting the last 3.
3?
Yeah, yeah. So they're
So if it's a business that's been around for at least a few years,
Yeah.
then it shouldn't be too bad or too
there
difficult
was
to get that.
and then of course they took you through everything we had on this journey. It was of course a business evaluation. We had to have 2 business evaluations. The good thing is both evaluations come in higher than what I was buying it for.
Great.
So that was good to hear.
Don't tell John that, right?
So, but both those came in higher, and but it was interesting on this whole thing was people don't realize, Tim, what's available in some of these programs. Like, for instance, it was a lot of hoops to jump through. Yeah, it took about 8 months to get it done. But let me just tell you on that, there's no way I could have got seller financing at a better rate. No way I would have got a better deal than that. I got it in for very little down on that side of things. And on top of that, you get the benefit about it is they will also give you operating capital.
Wow.
So when you close the loan, you can actually pull out operating capital too, right for the business. So if you say, I'm going
to go and drop 20 grand a month on capex or on not capex on marketing ad spend.
Yeah, so you might walk out with 100 grand and close the loan, walk out with 100 grand in operating capital. But think about this. If you got that, you just got a portion of your down payment back.
Love it.
Okay?
Love it.
So you could be in a position where you're down to 5% down or so on something like that. So huge.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So
Super cool. Super cool. So what's the plan with it? What's the plan?
So
you guys planning on growing it, scaling it, maintaining it? Is it like what's the goal as you're growing this business?
Well, most people know John from him being very much amazing person, amazing marketer, amazing salesperson. But he was very much an introvert. Okay.
Yeah.
And just wanted to
and very very vocal about that. He's like, listen,
very vocal.
I don't like being out in front of
Yeah.
the crowd. Like I need to energize by being alone and
staying in his house.
which is awesome. It's cool that he understands that and knows that.
Yep.
And has the awareness around that.
And made it public.
Yeah, for sure.
So based upon that, we knew going in. In fact, he told me, he says, you will be able to do more with the Sales Academy than I ever could do.
Yeah.
So our goal right from day one when we started looking at was, let's just grow this thing, okay? Because we know we can make an impact on a larger level. Tim, if you look at it too, John had the amazing sales experience, but I had the 28 years of real estate experience of doing thousands of deals. So,
which, by the way, even though you're an educator, you're still doing. You said you did 20. How many deals this month?
so the team is right now about 27 deals in for the month.
27 deals.
Yeah.
We're not at the end of the month yet. There's still
So-
a few more days left.
Yep, and so we have a constant
So
production line going.
it's not like you're some guru who's just like you're actually doing the business.
Oh, we do the business.
Yeah.
So I
in,
think
in
we're-
a large volume. I mean, that's
Yeah.
400 or what? Yeah, 350 deals a year.
Yeah. And so what we're doing on that side of things is, with all that, we have the ability to bring that practical side to the academy, which John wasn't really able to do before.
Yeah.
Okay? And so we're bringing that to the academy now. So now
So
we're
now
in
you
a
get the
position.
theoretical side and the practical side.
100%. So we're bringing that all. So we're just going to add that and continue to do that because we do a weekly training every single week that I'm running on this, which I enjoy doing. It's a one-time week thing. We do a live training with our students, and then we have an online academy that they can go into and have access to for lifetime on things. And it's very well laid out, and we're going to continue to add that. So our goal is to not only take the sales process that he's built in, but now we're going to start adding more practical side. So we're going to start adding like deal structuring and building all that in, the creative financing side. So now when you work with a seller, it's not just like a single shot.
Yep.
It's like, okay, we take you on this journey, but now to take you to this other side,
Yep.
we're going to go through and show you
give you
how.
options.
Yeah. And what we do is we refer to everything as programs.
I like that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
everything's a program. So we get out of like, we don't even make offers.
Yeah.
Okay, what we do is we do something what we call price qualify your property. So we price qualify your property in a way where we go in and see what program fits best for you, and then we model you into that. Whether it's a residential property, a multifamily building, or whatever it is, we focus on that side of things.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's just a different conversation. It's a fresher conversation of like, hey, you're actually trying to solve my problem instead of just take my legs out with some
100%.
lowball offer.
You know, and what's crazy is, Tim, is I've seen what the sales process can do for our own team and with so many students, and we used it.
Yeah.
So that's another big thing too. I used the product before I bought it. So I know what it does, and I know what results it can make for a team, and it's phenomenal. I was sharing, we were talking earlier a little bit about this, that a sales team that gets, let's say, a chance to make 100 offers over a year. Okay, whether it's yourself doing it or if you have a sales team that's doing it, acquiring properties, you're making 100 offers. Well, just by practicing one portion of the sales process, we know by historical data we can typically increase a team's conversions by as much as 20-25% on that. One portion of it. So if you were doing 100 and you can increase that by, that's potential another 20 deals or more over a year.
Yeah.
So
it's powerful, man.
Yeah.
Well, you're in town because you're filming a master class for Legacy Wealth Academy. So I'm pumped up to do that. I know Nick Burton's been out to your training before, my director of acquisitions, and we just hired somebody new. So, and then you have an event coming out September 8 and 9.
Yep.
And where's that? Cincinnati?
Cincinnati. Yep.
In Cincinnati.
2 days. Yep.
So we'll make sure that this gets out before that event. And then,
Yeah,
if you guys aren't part of Legacy Wealth Academy, it's $9.95 a month to get in and have access to these master classes from all these rock stars across the country in all different variables of doing business, not just real estate. I mean, there's a ton of residential real estate courses, commercial real estate courses, all different asset classes, wealth building, wealth preservation, sales psychology, sales skills, mindset growth, lifestyle design, like you name it, like everything is available in Legacy Wealth Academy. It's the highest value of anything out there, especially for $10 a month.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer on that.
Yeah, and then get to know Jerry a little bit more, and then plug into one of his Sales Academy courses. I mean, it's the highest rated, highest respected sales academy and sales training for your team out of anything else in the country. So you couldn't miss. Like it will be a massive investment, and your revenue will increase substantially by plugging into stuff like that.
Yeah, it's night and day difference. I've just seen it within my own team as well as all the students that we help.
Yeah.
It's amazing what it'll do on things. So, yeah, it just comes down to so many investors keep doing it the old way, where they just throw the spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah.
And some hits, but you have to realize that the game changes when you understand how to work a sales process that creates predictable results.
That's what turns it into a real business.
100% do. 100%.
So, well, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship. It's been awesome watching your growth and just kind of like, again, watching the good guys continue to grow, continue to make an impact, continue to make a difference in people's lives, and knowing each other for 5-7 years now. and can't imagine where the next 7 are going to take us.
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
I'm excited, man.
I am
Appreciate
too,
you
brother.
being here.
Likewise,
and,
buddy.
thanks for coming to Charleston.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
All right, hope you guys got so much value out of that. I think it was a great conversation. We hit on a lot of really, really insightful things. Again, if you're not part of Legacy Wealth Academy, we'd love to have you guys in there. It's $10 a month, or you can pay for a whole year and get like a 16, 17% discount. But go to lwacademy.com in order to check out more about that. You can see Jerry's masterclass. And if his sales academy is something that you want to plug into, we'll put the links in the comments section. You can plug into that next week. But until next time, I appreciate you guys watching Spill the Beans. Please give me a like. Please give me your best takeaway in the comment section below. And please share this with anybody else who you think might get some really good value out of this and help them grow their business over the course of the next couple years. So appreciate you. Until next time, I'll see you on Spill the Beans.